Nin explains why basketball in the United Kingdom sucks. You're crapping on another sport? No, I'm just presenting the facts as they are, but some of you are far too sensitive to handle the truth, which is a crying shame. #snowflakes. I thoroughly believe that the UK could, if they wanted to, create a culture of basketball similar to that of football and rugby, and yet they don't. Basketball is very much a minority sport over here, even though basketball facilities are literally everywhere. And it's not as if they've had no history of it. Basketball was introduced to Britain by the Americans shortly after its creation, and there are uniquely different reasons as to why basketball in the UK sucks. Before I explain, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to see my new videos. You know the drill. Let me tell you what the problem isn't. The problem is not due to lack of awareness or lack of participation. Basketball has more regular participants than sports such as cricket, tennis and golf. It's one of the sports that's on the national curriculum. So, unless your school doesn't have the facilities, you are forced to play basketball at a high school level as mandated by the government. You literally have no choice. Therefore, most people in the UK have played basketball at some point in their lives. And the problem isn't lack of facilities either. Unlike ice hockey, where there's shamefully only 56 rinks in the entire country, finding basketball facilities is easy. There are outdoor hoops, indoor leisure centres and schoolyard courts in literally every town and city across the country, and most of them are free to use. Also, unlike ice hockey, it's a cheap sport to get into. Just buy a ball, find a hoop and you're good to go. We also have televised games, a top league and a national team. So if Britain has all of this, what seems to be the problem? Well, problem number 1. No culture. Traditional English sports such as football and rugby are ingrained into the culture of British society. Kids play them at school, parents take kids to the games, grandparents watch it on TV, and your friends all play or watch these sports. This does not exist for basketball. There is no basketball culture in Britain, and unfortunately, nothing is being done to change that. With better participation levels, television coverage, and a decent national team, it might. But as it stands, football and rugby are still king. Problem number 2. No infrastructure. I mentioned earlier that it's mandatory to play the sport at high school, and that's fine. But what happens after that? Can you play this at college or university? Are there recreational teams and leagues that you can join once you reach 16? Is there a league progression system to get you to the top level? Nobody really knows, as it differs between areas of the country. What doesn't help is that professional teams barely have academies that give kids a chance to play. And the governing bodies are doing next to nothing to change that. When the American NBA is doing more to fund and create leagues for kids in Britain than Britain's actual governing body, you know you're in trouble. And in fairness to the NBA, they're smart enough to realise the untapped potential that the UK has for excellent players. They've thrown money at Britain to make it happen. But they can't do it by themselves, and they won't fund it forever. When the head of the BBL has openly admitted to doing a terrible job of developing the sport, it's hard to argue against. Problem number 3. People being lured away by football and rugby. When you're athletically gifted, football and rugby offer significantly better pathways, progression and payment than basketball. And being a professional football or rugby player is a much more attractive option, given that they're the highest paid athletes in the country. You could be signed up to an academy by the age of 9 and can be quote-unquote compensated, but not officially paid because that would be illegal, to commit your future to this elite rugby or football team. Most kids would jump at the chance for this. And obviously, teams want to protect their investment, so there are strict rules about playing other sports, i.e. you can't. This leaves kids who are athletically gifted and more suited to basketball not even being able to pick up a ball, because they signed a deal that prevents them from doing so. But when there's more of a future in a different sport, would these kids actually care? The answer is probably not. Problem number 4. Awful top league. the UK has its own version of the NBA called the British Basketball League. It's been around for a while, and believe it or not, it used to be pretty good. During the UK basketball boom of the 1990s, professional teams were raking it in. Playing in NBA-style arenas with quality players, televised games, and an increased demand for the sport at every level, basketball had never been so popular. This is the 1999-2000 Manchester Giants, playing in an 18,000-seat stadium on primetime Sky TV and winning the BBL Championship watched by millions. That team was coached by Nick Nurse. Yes, the same Nick Nurse that has just led the Toronto Raptors to the NBA title. I'm just going to leave this here for a second. Oh, how sweet it is. 20 years later, this is the Manchester Giants now, playing their games in what you Americans call the local YMCA in front of crowds of about 100. It's not televised, and nobody in Manchester knows they even exist, let alone care that they now play their games in a leisure centre. So how did it all go horribly wrong? The simple answer is money. The BBL lost its title sponsors and TV rights, which was a significant portion of its income. That means that teams were suddenly earning a lot less. These teams then couldn't afford to pay decent players anymore and replaced them with lower quality players. With a poorer standard of play, the spectators stopped showing up, which forced them to move to cheaper and crappier facilities, thus making watching games an even more unattractive option. The primetime televised games stopped completely, and with dwindling crowds and no coverage on terrestrial TV, this vicious circle has carried on until the present day. Professional teams will hire anybody who will work for peanuts, and nobody wants to pay good money to watch fourth-rate supposedly professional basketball being played out of a local rec centre when they can easily watch the NBA for free. This is how it's all gone so wrong so quickly. Problem number 5. Barely a national team and the government. Despite its problems, the UK has produced decent NBA-worthy talent. Ben Gordon, Luol Deng, Joel Freeland, OG Anunoby, John Amici, Michael Olowokandi. Okay, he's a bad example, but the point is that Britain produces some excellent basketball talent. So why is the national team so bad? Most of the aforementioned players had to leave the UK in order to develop their talents in the US. But most of the national team doesn't have that luxury. When you've got players who barely earn money rotting away in a league that isn't exactly pro, you've got a limited pool of players to choose from. The government's stance on sports funding is simple. We'll only give you money if you win big. The only reason that Great Britain had a basketball team in the 2012 Olympic Games is because they hosted the damn event and qualified by default. Predictably, both the men's and women's team got blown out repeatedly. The government deemed the Olympic basketball teams to be complete failures, prompting them to withdraw its funding from the sport of basketball. Typical British government logic. You suck at a sport, so instead of us giving you money to improve, we'll take it away and you can be even more of an embarrassment on the international stage. Well done, government. Well done. It's gotten so bad that the national teams almost withdrew indefinitely simply because they couldn't afford to play. When Britain's best player is advocating people to leave the country and play in the United States instead, that pretty much says it all. Problem number 6. False promises. Wouldn't it be nice to have a true British NBA equivalent? Primetime TV, big name players, academy, culture and basketball everywhere? One person promised all of that. Enter Ron Scott, an American businessman who founded the British Basketball Association, which was to rival the BBL and blow it completely out of the water. He promised big-time players, lucrative TV and sponsorship deals, capacity crowds at world-class arenas, and millions of dollars being thrown at it to make professional basketball as big as professional rugby. And teams would be in major big-time profits. Sounds pretty good, right? The news sent the media into a frenzy, and Ron Scott was seen promoting this new league on TV, on the internet, on social media, and this sent shockwaves throughout the entire basketball world. Oh my goodness, this is actually going to happen. This amazing all-singing, all-dancing basketball league was slated to commence play in 2006. then in 2011, and by 2016, nothing happened. They rebranded themselves as the Premier League of Basketball, presumably because the BBL and possibly the NBA would sue them mercilessly over the name. But this choice is even worse because they'd be sued by these guys instead. This new iteration promised even more money, bigger TV deals, larger crowds at bigger stadiums, and they were meant to commence play in 2016. 4 years later, and still nothing has happened. Ron Scott is either a very poor conman or the world's best procrastinator, because if you spend some time doing the research and read the online articles, and I highly recommend that you do, everything about him and his fictional organisation is a sham. Terribly organised, the finances don't add up, promises that never came to fruition, and the funniest thing of all, his London-based head office is actually a card shop on Wardour Street. This, apparently, is going to be the home to a league that's as good as the NBA. Are you serious? Sadly, he's not the first person, and won't be the last, to promise sweeping reforms to the sport of basketball in this country. Let's face facts. British basketball is in more trouble now than it's ever been. It's in significantly worse shape than ice hockey and American football, even though significantly more people play it. The rest of Europe doesn't have these problems, and competitions such as Eurobasket proves that with excellent organisation, TV coverage, funding, a clear structure, and developed culture, that basketball can thrive in any nation because it's an excellent sport. There's no reason why Britain can't be just as good as anyone else. When smaller countries like Lithuania are embarrassing you in front of the world, it's time to do something about it. Will they actually? That remains to be seen. If you've enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, share and subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comment section below.